Disney Plus has a documentary series that takes a look behind the scenes at the making of Frozen 2. Today, I'm going to be looking at the 5th episode as Frozen 2 gets closer to its world premiere. Stick with me, and I'm gonna break it all down after the intro. Well, hello there. My name's Jeremy and welcome back to Freeform Disney, where I talk about all aspects of Disney, from the animated movies to the theme parks to Star Wars, Marvel, and Pixar, and the TV shows, and everything else in between. And that is why it's Freeform. And keep coming back every day for new daily content. If you're not subscribed yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Today it's on to episode 5 of Disney's Into the Unknown making of Frozen 2. After last time, I'm happy to say no frustrations with this episode. Now this one is called Race to the Finish, because we are starting to get down to the wire. Now here's what went down. First, it's time to rewind slightly once more, which is common. Usually at the end we jump forward a little bit so we can jump back a month for the next episode. So now we're back to 5 months to premiere. It's June. Everyone's working big old 14-hour days, lots of people putting in overtime left and right in 6-day weeks. Whew, gets pretty busy right there toward the end of a production. Yeah. We get to talk to Wayne UNTEN, who's the animation supervisor for Elsa, and he talks about what his days are like at this point. And apparently most of his normal day is meetings here, meetings there, going on rounds, or going through dailies, or just supporting the other animators. That's the full day. Then go home, put the kids to sleep, spend some time with his wife, and then he comes back to work and works on his own animation. Yeah, there's your 14-hour days or 14-plus hour days right there. Dang, that would get pretty crazy. Now here's a piece we didn't get to hear about last time, but it's nice that we get to hear one more of the things that got changed after the audience preview. And I'd heard a little about this before, so it's not completely new to me. But this is the beginning of the movie, and it gets radically altered. Originally, there was this longer introduction piece, and we actually went up to the North Aldra at the beginning and met who they were. And you can see why this might not work as well as starting with our own characters more. And that's what we changed it to. And there was an interesting comment Chris Bach had in there about how really it often is the case that the introduction for the movie ends up being the last scene to be animated, because you really know what it needs to be once you've seen what the rest of the movie finally becomes. Hard to set up a movie that's still in flux, right? And it was pretty cool watching good old Bobby and Kristen Lopez just get super into how they needed to change the lullaby in order to make it work for the new intro. And super fun to watch. So now we get to see Mark Smith, probably for one of the last times we'll see him in this documentary. Because his work generally is on the early side of things, as he's creating all that beautiful artwork for what people can expect for the story. And in this case, he's working on his last scene. And it's the goodbye between Anna and Elsa up in the forest. Which actually was a new scene apparently at this point, because they didn't really give enough time for Anna and Elsa originally before that audience preview. So here's one more piece that we just got to find out. And by the way, I've got to be curious, what exactly does Mark do after this? Does he have a whole lot of other work that they give him after this point in time in the last few weeks, or is he kind of done a few weeks ahead of everybody else? To be honest, I really don't know how that position works after that. Maybe I'll go ahead and find out here in the 6th episode. Maybe we'll see him again after all. Well, on to weekends, and we get to see some of the cast coming in, like Kristen Bell, to go ahead and record stuff, because everybody pops in on the weekends, even the cast. Heck, we even get a little comment from Jennifer Lee that at this point, whatever day that was somewhere in June, that she was at 20 days in a row at that point. Yeah, yeah, 6-day weeks, or maybe 7-day weeks, depending on who you are, right? And even then, she's still got to be trying to balance everything else in terms of running Disney Animation, so dang, what a mess. Can't imagine trying to do both of those jobs at the same time, especially in the end portion of a movie. Ooh. And your movie that you wrote, your movie that you're co-directing. Yeah, just a bit of pressure right there. Then we got to move on to good old Show Yourself again, which has to be the main piece that is talked about in all of these episodes. Just because there is so much still being done in this portion of the production, because it really came together as late as it did. So we got to see some more dailies as it's getting closer, but the main thing we looked at was a dress transformation. We use this to also show some different aspects of production. And I love seeing different aspects of production that we haven't seen yet. So we popped back over to our good old production designer, Michael, and he talked about how the idea really is to get the 4 elements and infuse them into the new dress. And that how he sees this as the culmination of Elsa becoming the Snow Queen. And the dress transformation is a huge thing. It was huge for them back in the first Frozen and then big for them here in the second one. And Dan Lund, an effects designer, is one of the big people as far as working on all of that. Now, the funny thing apparently is, as he said, in the first movie, they had a year to go ahead and do it. Well, they've got a little bit less here in this one. I mean, heck, when he talked to the camera here for the documentary series, he'd only been working on it for 4 days. Yo. And we got to see him going through some of the process of pitching an idea, and one that really didn't work. So you got to see a little more of that behind the scenes and things not being perfect. Because he thought he had a great idea, he tried pitching it, and then the way other people were talking about it kind of just became, hey, this floating stuff. And when you hear floating stuff, well, your pitch didn't quite go the way you wanted it to. And that's certainly what he realized, and reworked it and came up with a better pitch. There was this interesting comment I thought from Michael as well, where he talked about how he was willing to accept certain ideas more just because of how under the gun they were in terms of how much time of the production had left. And that's interesting. I mean, you kind of have to be in that spot. But it's interesting to actually hear it said aloud. And by the way, I loved watching the dress formation come together. Really cool. All the work that goes into it. And hey, we're going to still see some more because now we go up to 4 months until premiere. We're into July, and Steve Goldberg, a visual effects supervisor, is brought in, and we introduce him and talk about what his job is. And he's really one of the head honchos, shall we say. His job is essentially to be the department head of the department heads, as he puts it, and he makes sure that the entire movie looks like it was all done by the same person and at the same quality level. So as far as the dress transformation, then we get to go in, we get to go ahead and talk to Key, who's an effects animator, who animates the crystals flying through the air. And then we get to move from the animators on over to the tech animation, and then we get to go over and talk to David Cervik, who's busy testing how fabrics move in order to really make sure Elsa's cape moves and ripples and floats in the right magical way during Show Yourself. And so that means they go ahead and test fabrics to see how normal fabrics really work. So you're checking wrinkle quality, speed of ripples, the shapes that the fabric make. And that you take that all the way down to a shot by shot spot and really just have to look in on that. And then we're on over to lighting. And we get to go ahead and meet MOHIT KALLIANPUR. And I certainly might have mispronounced that name. Hopefully I didn't. I tried. Now, he's the director of cinematography for lighting. And really, like we've seen in certain other spots, just like the cameras inside the software and how you try to make animation as if it's a real world project just done inside a digital space. The same is true here in terms of lighting. They have a virtual set in there where they actually can put lights from different spots and light it up as if it were an actual stage. And well, we got to see a little bit of that lighting up and just the difference that makes. And it's so intriguing. When you're in a digital space, you could do things so differently if you wanted to. But on the other hand, it's what humans are used to seeing. We expect lights to work in a certain way. Otherwise, things look wrong to us. And it's also what people are used to as far as how to make a movie is to work from the very aspects we're already used to. So essentially, we try to import our physical world into the digital, rather than necessarily taking certain advantage of things we might be able to do because it would be more foreign to us and harder to use. At least at first, anyway. Now, in each of the different episodes so far of the documentary, we've always had a new song to bring up and really get to see that one gone through in some way. Well, but we went through all of the major songs, actually, by the end of last episode. So what were we doing this time? Well, we did actually have something, because we had Forest Vuelie. In other words, the Hey Anna song. Hey Anna, hey Anna, hey, hey. That one. Anywho, that was actually put together by Christophe Beck, the composer, and we didn't talk a whole lot with him in this one. We made a little bit of talk about how he comes in late and does his portion of production. Maybe we'll talk a little more with him in the 6th episode, as he might still be around to talk with then. But it was really cool to see one modification that actually happened during the course of the time the documentary people were there watching Chris Buck and Christophe Beck work. And there was just this spot where they really were able to change it and make it so the song started a little more organically. Just a few people bringing it in, then a few more. And, oh, it's beautiful. I love the piece of music in the first place, and it's used so well in Frozen 2 as well. Now, the final 8 minutes of the episode, the last quarter or so, we head on off to D23, which takes place on August 24th, so we jumped forward a little in time. Hey, after all, we got to be able to jump back in time a little bit when it comes to next episode, right? Well, anyway, we're headed off there, and this is going to be the first time that anyone has seen full scenes of the movie. And hey, it was really neat to go ahead and see how some fans actually interact with Jennifer Lee and how she interacts with them. We've gotten to know Jennifer Lee a little bit better during the course of the documentary, and so it's really neat. We got to see a couple of people who cosplay as Elsa and Anna and who had met at D23 in 2017 and became such really good friends they talk every day since. And how they credit Jennifer Lee especially for that. And just how you can touch other people's lives. It's a really cool thing. Now we got to see some pieces of the D23 as it was going, but a lot of that you could see if you wanted to online. You can find your places for it, or maybe you were there and saw it in person. But the part that I thought was really nice, especially in the documentary, is getting to see some of the behind-the-scenes pieces that you most certainly did not get to see by watching D23. Like when we had Idina, Kristen, Josh, and Jonathan over backstage, and they were busy interacting and rehearsing their song, getting ready. Because, hey, this is the first time they've ever performed it together. And I should say the song they performed was Some Things Never Change. They all came on stage and gave a great performance of it. But that's just one of the bizarre things I think I commented on before on animation, is how they actually do all their pieces individually. I just have to say, my opinion is it would be so much stronger if you actually had the chance to work together. It's just one of those things. If you actually can react and act based off of the other people who are there with you, it can just add so much more. Now, historically, that's not the case in animation, but there have been some productions that have moved more in that direction. And it seems to be something that has been shifting over time too, especially over the last, let's say, decade or so. Just as animation seems to be getting a little more respected as a profession. And I really hope to see more of that in the future because, the people who do voice work in animation should get the credit they deserve. It is a lot of work and it is real acting. To say it's anything short of that is a huge disservice. Anyway, onward we go, and next time is going to be the final episode. Already. I'm already beginning to miss this documentary at this point. Now, I appreciated that this episode showed us a couple more of the changes that resulted from the audience preview in the last one. And we got to dig a little bit deeper into the dress transformation, which was also really nice. They also surprised me. They had made a point to bring in a new song each episode, and I thought it was done, but hey, guess what? They weren't. So hey, maybe they'll find a way to surprise me again in the last episode, right? We'll see. And onward next time to the last episode. So, on that note, what about you? Did you love digging into that dress transformation? Or maybe there's a favorite crew member we got to talk to this time. Well, let me know down below in the comments. And thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like, share it with anyone you think will too, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done it already. I'll see you back here tomorrow for another new episode of Freeform Disney. Have a magical day. And may the force be with you, always.